Good evening, Americans. This is your favorite alien, and Bubba here on this evening on August 8th, 2019. Well, today CNN, boy, talk about a strange news organization. I have to do a rebuttal to their report on. They had this guy on. I forget what his name was. He's supposed to be a Latino, talking about the violence here versus the violence in Latin American countries. That Latins don't understand the violence here. Really? And he was saying that all they understand is cartel, meaning cartels, violence and cartels, and that's all they have. What is he smoking? I have no idea. So here, CNN, I believe it was Brooke Baldwin that was doing the interview there. I could be mistaken, but I don't watch CNN that much, but I think that's her. Anyway, didn't get the guy's name. But number one, violence is the same in Latin American countries as it is in the U.S. They don't use shootings, but you got a lot of knifings. Oh, and beheadings too. Don't forget about them, huh? Especially if your husband is hanky-panky with somebody else. The wife has the right to go over there and slit his throat. And a lot of those happens. I'm from Panama, I know. Go to Costa Rica, Colombia, necktie, Woohoo! Venezuela, Nicaragua. Oh, Nicaraguans are bad about that. El Salvador, where MS-13 and other things like that. But there's violence. They call them maleantes, and that they don't know the violence in America, gun violence. Come on, guy. Since the 1960s, I grew up with La Ley del Revolver, which in English translates to Gunsmoke. Bonanza, Kojak, Bang Bang, Kojak, Cannon, Mannix, you name it, we had it in Spanish. And all kinds of violence. Oh, don't forget Dirty Harry, too, huh? So what the heck is he talking about? I have no idea, Americans. He's trying to paint us Latins as being dum-dums, or you don't know much violence except for cartels. I grew up in violence. In Panama City during the 60s and early 70s, there was a street, and it was called Sal Si Puedes. Come out if you can. And there was a reason why it was named that way. Because you were on that street and you had your life in your hands, boy. People went out, and very few people came out of that. And Panama was bad. When Torrijos took over in 1968, he had to clean all that mess up. And yes, he was a military dictator, but boy, did he clean that country in a hurry. But the violence in Panama was about 10 times worse than the violence you had here in the States. And boy, did you have violence here in the States. You've always had violence in the States. It's nothing new. You remember in the 1960s you had Ira Einhorn doing his stuff. You had the anti-war protesters doing this stuff. You had bombings on banks and going postal at the post office. In the 40s and 50s, you had La Mafia. In the 30s, well, you had Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, Pootie Boy Floyd. Remember those guys? Yeah, in the 20s, you had Al Capone and guys like that. Don't forget, you also had mobs from the Irish mobs, like O'Banion in the north side of Chicago. Remember that? You even had mobs in Boston. Boston was a nasty Irish mobs, 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Whitey Bulger. Yeah, he was just the latest one. But there were worse ones than him in Boston. What else? So this guy in CNN, I mean, what is he talking about? The violence has always been here in Latin America. In Panama, you can come to Panama now, And you can see that the violence is not even a tenth of what it was back in the 1960s. But you go to Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, woohoo! And go to Costa Rica. A lot of you Americans like to go to Costa Rica, but go outside of San Jose. You get kidnapped, you get roughed up, big time in Costa Rica. Mexico, well, you know Mexico. You get killed over there. Go to Brazil. Colombia. Oh, Colombia likes to kill you guys. Venezuela, well, remember, persona non grata there right now. And they got violence over there big time. In Colombia, there's always violence. Peru, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay. Don't forget the Shining Path in Peru were bad too, huh? So see, this is what I'm saying, Americans. I don't understand where CNN is getting all this. We Latins have more violence than you Americans ever dreamed up, and a lot more nastier. We also got feuds that last for decades, even centuries. Something that you guys don't understand because your war, you get sick of feuds and you get sick of wars in a hurry and you want to terminate them. Latins don't. They go from generation to generation to generation. So I don't understand where CNN is getting this and trying to put this guy up there as a promoter of Latin discourse, and they're promoting more discourse with the Latins and making them look stupid. The Latins are who they are, good, bad, or for the worst. We are who we are. So quit making the Latins trying to be better than the Americans. They're not better, they're not worse. They're about in the same boat. This is your favorite alien saying, come on, CNN, get off the horse.